Technology will not replace great teachers, but technology in the hands of great teachers can be transformational, as quoted by George Perusal. I unquote. Good afternoon, everyone. The galaxy of intellectuals, invited professors, and my dear friends. On behalf of the departments of microbiology, biochemistry, biotechnology, and American Corner, St. Francis College for Women, I, Dr. Anita, consider it a privilege to welcome all of you to the 4 days faculty development program and international workshop on effective teaching of STEM courses online. It's a great honor to have with us Mr. David Moyer, Public Affairs Officer, Public Affairs Section, U.S. Consulate General, Hyderabad, Principal, Dr. Sister Sandra Hotta, Vice Principal, Dr. Sister Shirley, Dean Academics, Dr. Malika Shetty, Dr. Anil Kumar Challa, Adjunct Professor, University of Alabama, Dr. Joe Christopher, Public Affairs Section, U.S. Consulate General, Hyderabad, Head, Department of Microbiology, and convener of the Faculty Development Program, Dr. M. Shailaja Raj, Head, Department of Biochemistry, Dr. P. Kanchana, and Ms. Shauni Nivedita, Head, Department of Biotechnology and Joint Convener. Before we proceed further, let's invoke God's blessings in our midst through a short prayer by Dr. Rosalind.
Bible reading. The reading is taken from 2 Timothy chapter 3 verses 16 to 17. All scripture is given by inspiration of God and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness, that the man of God may be perfect, thoroughly furnished unto all good works. This is the word of God. Let us bow our heads in prayer. Our gracious Lord, we thank you for this beautiful day in our lives. We pray, Lord, to fill us with your grace and guide us all through the workshop. We place the management of St. Francis College for Women, departments of microbiology, biochemistry, biotechnology, and American Corner into your hands. Give them the grace and strength. We are grateful for all the resource persons of the workshop. Shower them, Lord, with your gift of wisdom. We place into your hands all the delegates and all those who worked hard for the success of the workshop. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
With every seizure, let me bring your love. With every century, your kind Lord. And let us have true faith in you. Oh, Master, God, we never see. So much to be consoled, to console. To be understood as to understand. To be loved as to love with all my soul. Make me a channel of your peace. Where there's despair and life that deep repose. Where there is darkness, we shine a light. And where the sadness ever joy. Oh, Master, God, we never see. So much to be consoled as to console. To be understood as to understand. To be loved as to love with all my soul. peace. It is embodying that we are finding. In giving to all that you see. And the dying that we're born to turn away. A world that we never see. So much to be consoled as to console. To be understood as to understand. To be loved as to love with all my soul. Make me a channel of your peace.
Thank you, Dr. Roslyn, for leading us in prayer. STEM education is important because our world depends on it. STEM focuses on teaching skills and subjects in a way that resembles real life. We need skilled STEM experts to help us develop the next successful antibiotic for the cure of a disease. We need engineers to create the next new phone or a computer that learns faster than human. We also need a math expert to help us understand big data and explore space seamlessly. With this short note on STEM, I now invite our respected principal, Dr. Sister Sandra Hotta, an eminent personality and a seasoned scholar, to address the gathering. We have a recorded message from our sister.
A very happy and pleasant afternoon to each one of you. I'm truly delighted to join you in this international workshop on effective teaching of STEM courses online. It's my joy to welcome Mr. David Moyer, Public Affairs Officer, U.S. Consulate General, Hyderabad, and Dr. Joe Christopher from Public Affairs Section. American Corner has been in our campus from 2013, and we have been collaborating with them in conducting many a number of events like for STEM education, women empowerment, and many a number alike. We are thankful to all at the American Corner for helping us in small and big venture of us. We are joined by participants from all over, and it's my honor to welcome you to enrich your pedagogical skills from resource persons drawn from the four corners of the world. This FTP, jointly organized by St. Francis College and American Corner, will definitely be welcomed by the teaching fraternity, primarily at this time when online interactions have become the order of the day. Teaching is a very dynamic profession. Just like the flowing river, we have students passing through our hands, relishing the nectar of knowledge which flows in and through us. Obviously, this process requires a constant renewal. We need to replenish ourselves with newer ways of being relevant, inculcating novel methods of delivering the treasures of knowledge that we have gained over the years. During these 4 days, my wish is that you be equipped with latest and most innovative ways of enhancing the quality quotient of teaching learning experience. This will enhance the professional competence of teachers, giving a greater impetus to student-centered learning. There are sessions on e-content development, which will go a long way in creating and facilitating the teaching learning process, making it more accessible to students, both advanced learners and slow learners. My desire is that the objectives of the workshop to harness effectively online pedagogy and provide insight on methodologies, teaching skills, and implement assessment strategies be fully realized. Towards this end, may this workshop bring joy and satisfaction both to the organizers and the participants. The 3 departments of biochemistry, microbiology, and biotechnology, under the able guidance of Dr. Shailaja Raj, HOD Microbiology, the convener of the workshop, who is the recipient of State Best Teacher Award for this year, assisted by the co-conveners Dr. Kanchana, HOD Biochemistry, and Ms. Shawnee, HOD Biotechnology, with the members of these departments have meticulously chalked out all the sessions which will make our teaching learning process an enjoyable experience for the teaching fraternity and the students as well. May God bless all our efforts to reach out to students, making their lives more happy and peaceful. Let us all join hands as educators to bring into our institutions the joy of learning to teach and teaching to learn. Enigmatic though this is a reality, we must, through this noble profession of teaching, make our classrooms abodes of wisdom and love, and channelize the collective positive energies of ours towards enhancing the happiness quotient of our institutions. As I conclude, all Francesians join me in wishing you a great time of learning. God bless you all. Thanks.
Thank you, sister, for your inspiring words, for the warm welcome, and for your message. It would be my honor to invite Dr. M. Shailaja Raj, the convener of the International Faculty Development Program and the head department of microbiology, to give us insight onto the 4 days workshop on effective teaching of STEM courses online. Over to Shailaja, ma'am.
Thank you, Anita. Good afternoon and warm welcome on behalf of St. Francis family. I am Dr. M. Shailaja Raj, HOD Microbiology, convener, along with my colleagues, co-conveners of the workshop, Dr. Kanchana, HOD of Biochemistry, Ms. Shawnee Nivedita, HOD of Biotechnology, extend our warm welcome to our principal, Sister Sandra Hota, Vice Principal, Dr. Sister Shirley, Dean Academics, Dr. Malika Shetty, Public Affairs Officer, Mr. David Moyer, Dr. Joe Christopher, Public Affairs Section, United States Consulate General, Hyderabad. And Dr. Anil Kumar, the first speaker of the day today, and all my dear participants from various organizations. St. Francis College for Women, Department of Microbiology, Biotechnology, and Biochemistry, in association with American Corner, is organizing this FDP, International Workshop on Effective Teaching of STEM Courses online, starting from today till 30th October 2021. STEM education, as Anita has already given in the introduction, is an integrated interdisciplinary approach to learning that provides hands-on and relevant learning experience. An effective online pedagogy is one that emphasizes and employs student-centered active learning process. The workshop today aims at providing an insight to faculty on methodologies, resources, teaching skills, design, and implementation of assessment strategies to enhance online teaching. Spread over 4 days, starting from today till October 30th, workshop has been designed with some interesting themes, such as, you must have read in the brochure, making biology learning relevant to students, resources and methods of teaching science, design, implementation and assessment of courses, curriculum using active collaborative learning strategies, creation of problem-based learning, open educational resources in higher education, connecting biology content knowledge to social issues and society needs, e-content development, video editing tools, rubrics, tools to make learning goals and evaluation criteria explicit for both teachers as well as learners are the themes of the workshop during these days. And at the end, we also conclude with a panel discussion which would spark conversation between the group of experts and the participants. And I must say that all this is not possible without the consent and unconditional support extended by the resource persons for the workshop. who are of international repute, like, to name a few, Dr. Anil Kumar, University of Alabama, Dr. Valeska Dana Segura, US State Department, Professor E. Castello Brissimo, Yulin University, Professor K. Srinivas, Naipa, New Delhi, Professor Mamata Dadala, Registrar of Sri Padmavati Mahavidyalaya, and Dr. Praveen Kumar Mavidala from TSWREIS. Program schedule is being shared with all of you in WhatsApp group. Kindly refer to the instructions given in filling up the Google Forms that are shared with you by the resource persons and to the needful. I am happy to announce that we have about 130 registrations from all over India, from various universities and colleges from Hyderabad, Bangalore, Nagaland, Vellore, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Lucknow, Gujarat, Uttarakhand, Rajasthan, Jabalpur, Madurai, Bihar, and so on. Thanks to all of you for your response, and hope you all will have an active learning participation. And as teachers, I wish all of us an enriched experiential learning takeaway from this workshop. Thank you so much. Over to Anita.
Thank you so much, Shalija ma'am, for enlightening us with the highlights related to the workshop. I consider it a privilege to introduce Mr. David Moyer, Public Affairs Officer at the US Consulate General in Hyderabad. Mr. David joined the US State Department in 2003, and his overseas assignments include Mexico, Vietnam, South Korea, and Cyprus. He served as Deputy Director in the UN Political Affairs Office at Washington, D.C. Mr. David concluded a Pearson Fellowship as a Foreign Policy Advisor for the Indiana Senator Todd Young. He has a bachelor's degree in Japanese and International Relations from Brigham Young University and an MBA from the George Washington University. His wife, Audrey, and is also a Foreign Service Officer, and they are blessed with 3 sons. We are deeply honored to have you here, sir, in our midst, and I request Mr. David to address the gathering. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Principal Sister Dr. Sandra Horta, Vice Principal Sister Dr. Shirley, and heads of departments of microbiology, biochemistry, and biotechnology, and dear participants, good afternoon. It's great to virtually meet you and inaugurate this webinar. Hopefully we get to see some of you at in-person activities in the very near future. So American Corners collaborate with host institutions like St. Francis College for Women to organize events that advance goals that are important to both of our countries. Empowering girls is one of the shared priorities of the American and Indian governments. In 2016, President Obama issued a proclamation to commemorate the International Day of the Girl Child. He stated that we commemorate the day to recognize our obligation to lift up women and girls and to build a world where all girls feel safe and empowered in their classrooms, their communities, and their homes. Earlier this month, President Biden pointed out that the growth and development of the world's economies, institutions, and nations rests on all girls having equal rights and opportunities. He further stated that ensuring girls reach their full potential is a moral and strategic imperative. Empowering girls helps populations become sustainable and resilient. When we invest in women and girls, our democracies grow more stable and prosperous. Throughout October, across the world, the US government, corporations, and civil society organizations conduct hundreds of programs to advance the cause of girls' empowerment. Last week, the American Corner in Hyderabad, along with corners in Ahmedabad, Jaffna, and Manila, co-hosted a panel discussion that focused on facilitating access to quality education for girls. Earlier this month, Sister Dr. Sujatha Yeduva, a faculty at your esteemed institution, led a masterclass that highlighted careers available for women in STEM. As the American and Indian governments work together to defeat COVID-19, we are aware that children and women bear the brunt of this epidemic. In 2019, about 130 million girls across the world were out of school. COVID-19 forced an additional 11 million girls to stop their education. As President Biden noted, COVID-19, quote, exacerbated disparities, and girls of color and those from underserved and low-income communities face disproportionate challenges. An estimated 33,000 girls are coerced into child or early marriages every day, fueling an intergenerational cycle of poverty that is difficult to break. If we deny girls access to education, we are undermining future economic growth, health, and development. STEM is one of the biggest tools for women's empowerment. Women in STEM jobs earn 33% more than those in non-STEM occupations and experience a smaller wage gap relative to men. STEM careers offer women the opportunity to engage in some of the most exciting realms of discovery and technological innovation. Expanding opportunities for women in these fields is an important step towards realizing greater economic success and equality for women. The United States is committed to supporting this goal. President Biden's 2022 education budget prioritizes STEM, particularly among female students of color. He has sought congressional approval for historic investments in education, including $5 billion to support greater diversity in STEM education. The U.S. government is committed to provide women with increased access to education in fields such as STEM. Through our exchanges and cultural programs, we try to engage with as many women as possible. In fall 2019, we organized an international visitor leadership program for women educators in STEM. Sister Dr. Sujatha Yedava participated in this 3-week program. This May, along with St. Francis College, we organized a game-a-thon to provide solutions to COVID-19 through gaming. Several students from St. Francis College participated in this program and engaged with senior gamers and programmers. This summer, 5 young women from this region traveled to the United States to participate in U.S. government-facilitated youth exchange programs, including the Community College Initiative program. One of the biggest challenges that we faced globally during the pandemic was the disruption in education cycles. As schools and colleges were shut down globally, we were forced to adapt to online systems of communication and education. This is a huge challenge because in several places, internet access is just non-existent. There are not enough computers and smartphones. Not all teachers are equipped to teach courses online. Hence, we wanted to organize a program that would help teachers prepare for online teaching. I'm glad that this webinar involves some alumni of the State Department exchange programs. You are bringing in some renowned STEM experts from the region that we have worked with in the past. Professor Mary Mamatha participated in a Fulbright program. Professor Mamidala at the Telangana Social Welfare Society pursued doctoral and postdoctoral research at American universities, and we work closely with his institutions. These are seasoned STEM faculty and administrators. I hope you will engage with these resource persons, learn best practices for online teaching, and share these with your colleagues. I congratulate the college management and American Corner for co-hosting this program. We look forward to receiving your feedback regarding the events that followed this webinar. I wish you all the very best and look forward to more programs like this in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for that inspiring and motivating words, and also giving insights into the activities conducted by American Corner. We will shortly begin our technical sections, and I now invite Ms. Sunita, faculty from the Department of Microbiology, to take over the technical sessions.
Good evening, everyone. A warm welcome to the delegates and participants of this International Faculty Development Program workshop on effective teaching of STEM courses online. We would start the technical sessions of day 1. As a part of today's schedule, we have 3 exemplary speakers with us. It gives me immense pleasure in introducing the resource person of this session. Session 1, Dr. Anil Kumar, Adjunct Professor, Department of Biology, University of Alabama at Birmingham. Sir would be delivering a session on pedagogy tools to enhance online teaching. Dr. Anil Kumar completed his Bachelor of Science in Agricultural Sciences from Institute of Agricultural Sciences, Banaras Hindu University, India in 1997. In year 2000, he had Summer Fellowship, Neural Development and Genetics of Zebrafish, Marine Biological Laboratory, Woods Hole, MA, and Sir holds PhD in Molecular Genetics from the Ohio State University, Columbus, 2003. Dr. Anil Kumar has held numerous positions and has enriching professional experience. Presently, Sir is working as Adjunct Professor, Department of Biology, University of Alabama, Birmingham. He's also visiting scientist at Greehey Children's Cancer Research Institute, University of Texas Health Sciences Center at San Antonio. Also visiting scientist at Dr. Reddy's Institute of Life Sciences, University of Hyderabad campus, Hyderabad, India. Sir has more than 40 scientific publications in various international peer-reviewed journals like Biochemistry and Biophysics Reports, Frontiers in Microbiology, Free Radical Biology and Medicine, Frontiers in Cardiovascular Medicine, Journal of Genetics, Mechanisms of Development, Current Science, and India Bioscience magazine, to name a few. Sir has 16 published abstracts in various international conferences. He was a part of 27 invited talks and oral presentations at various parts of the globe. Dr. Anil Kumar is an exceptional teacher and mentor, guiding many undergraduate and graduate and also medical students in various research programs. Sir taught many courses as assistant instructor, and course director. He received many grants and awards. 2020 to 23, NSF Robert Noyce Scholarship Program, IUSC, Biology Education in CRISPR-based gene editing technologies for advanced biology undergraduates, pre-service teachers, and in-service teachers. In 2019, NSF IUSC meeting hands-on workshop for building working groups of CRISPR-Cas9 undergraduate educators. In 2018, NSF IUSC meeting, 2018 Pre-Association of Biology Laboratory Educators meeting, hands-on workshop for introducing CRISPR-Cas9 technology to undergraduate instructors. 2015 to 16 Teaching Innovation and Development Award, Center for Teaching and Learning, University of Alabama at Birmingham. 2014-15 Faculty Development Grant Program, University of Alabama at Birmingham. Teaching Fellowship, Biotechnology, Bioengineering Center and Innovation Center, Medical College of Wisconsin. Also, Outreach Grant for DNA Day from AP Academy of Sciences in 2008. He assisted in writing a successful grant application on exploring the cyanobiology of the zebrafish. Second place, Scott Falkentel Memorial Graduate Student Colloquium, the Ohio State University in 2000, Distinguished Service Award, Council of Graduate Students, the Ohio State University. Dr. Anil Kumar has many service and leadership contributions to his credit. He's a review editor of the journal Frontiers in Genetics, ad hoc reviewer of Frontiers in Microbiology, Course Source, CBE Life Sciences Education, Scientific Reports, PLOS ONE, BMC Research Notes, Frontiers in Behavioral Neuroscience, and Annals of Microbiology. He was invited as judge for many research programs, panelist in many conferences, member, delegate in scientific executive committees, and part of various organizing committees. Sir holds professional membership in Society for Advancement of Biology Education Research, the American Society for Cell Biology, Genetic Society of America, and Society for Developmental Biology. Sir, we are very happy to have you with us today, and we welcome you into our midst and request you to take over.
Thank you very much, ma'am. It's indeed a pleasure to be part of this group. I hope I'll be able to share my screen. So it's actually a privilege as well as a little bit of a challenge to be the first speaker, because I have no idea what's expected. So fortunately, we have at least a few inputs from some of the participants. So as it's been introduced, the title of this particular session is going to be on pedagogy tools to enhance online teaching. A lot of things that I'm going to share with you are things that I have some expertise or some experience with. But let's get started with what we have as a representation of this group. So with a small segment of this, we definitely have, as we heard, about 130 odd people attending this session. But a small number, about 30 people have responded. So we have about close to 40% of people attending this workshop have more than 15 years of experience teaching. And then you have a distribution of 1 to 3 years, 5 to 10 years, and 10 to 15 years. So as it's obvious from this particular graph, it's a very life science biased group. So some of the things I might say are probably going to be more related to biology. I'm very glad to see that there's a little bit of physics and chemistry also, people from these two areas, physics and chemistry, also participating in this session. So the reason this is very important, particular slide is very important, is as I mentioned, I'm going to share a little bit of what I know, but the reality is there's a lot of expertise right here in this particular gathering itself. As you can see, give or take, the numbers are reasonably obvious, but these are broadly known pedagogical tools. This is not a comprehensive list, as you can see on the y-axis. There's a lot of, there's a variety of pedagogical tools, and there's a reasonable amount of expertise. As you can see, either people use it all the time or they have significant expertise. There are things like gamification and student portfolios, maybe peer instruction and digital storytelling, a little less than 50%, but there's still, the numbers are not, they're not in a minority. So this is just to get an idea about the gathering itself. So what I am going to do is to focus on one aspect of the learning. This, as all of you know, there's so many dimensions to the learning ecosystems. I'm going to focus mostly on curriculum, which drives assessment with a goal on learning. So as you will notice, as I go along, there's a great bias or heavy weightage on learning itself. So I'm going to introduce 4 different tools that two of them in reasonable detail and 2 of them in passing. First of all, before I get started with the core, am I audible and is it legible? Do you want me to be a little slower or should I go far? Is the pace good enough?
Yes, sir. It's quite clear.
Thank you very much. So first, I will be introducing you to something called interactive video vignettes. And then I will talk a little bit about Perusal, a tool that helps collaborative learning. Then I will very briefly talk about BioRender, a tool which helps in visual learning. And essentially, it's a different tool, but how we can use it for visual learning. And team-based problem solving using case studies, which is a very nicely developed resource at the State University of New York in Buffalo in the United States. So some of you have already participated in the Perusal part of it. We have about 30 odd people who signed up for Perusal. And the reason I did that is at least some of you will have a direct experience with the system itself. So when I see a hand, should I ask? I'm open to questions right away because I deliberately kept the talk very short so that we'll have enough time for discussion as well as any questions that you'd like to be you would like to see answered. So if there's a question, definitely stop me. And Sunita ma'am, can you please stop me with using an audio signal? Basically it's telling me something to stop. And if there's a question, I'm open to taking questions as we go along.
Yes,
and
sir.
I believe
sure, sir. I'll let you know, sir.
Thank you. And I believe you can put in your questions either in the chat, in the Q&A box. I'm not watching that, but I would request the organizers to, if there's an important question that I need to stop, please let me know. So before I get into the interactive video vignettes, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the background behind it. So this is not, again, none of these things are unfamiliar to you. It is just a new perspective or a different perspective. This is a quote from one of the publications. Online learning can be enhanced by giving learners control of their interactions with media and prompting learner reflection. So once students get the control of their learning, it's a lot more effective. So there's also evidence that increasing the interactivity of an online lecture may make it more effective compared to either a non-interactive online lecture or a face-to-face lecture. That means, again, I think last year was a boon for us in experimenting various modalities in digital education, especially online teaching and learning. And I think one of the things which we could not avoid is a certain amount of interactivity. So for example, in a book, the authors describe studies demonstrating that students who are exposed to multisensory environments, such as pictures, animation, and video, they had more accurate recall than those who only hear or read information. Now, this is again not a surprise, especially with our last 1.5 years of experience delivering content online and interacting with students on digital platforms. So the authors also conclude that if the brain is able to construct two mental representations of an explanation, say it verbal or visual, but I think the demand is much more than just verbal and visual, then the mental connections are much stronger. So the interactive video vignettes that I'm going to introduce to you actually take into consideration a lot of these things. So the IVVs, interactive video vignettes, use the pedagogically effective and classic elicit, confront, resolve technique. So if I have to ever use it, I'll call it the ECR technique. IVVs, the interactive video vignettes, they elicit a prediction from a user. They confront the user with experimental results and helps the users resolve any differences between the prediction and result. So, the important thing is that students are free to choose answers that reflect what they really believe, rather than what they think that the instructor wants to hear or what the textbook says. Something, again, we'll talk about, I'll go through one example, which is probably most of us are familiar with from high school physics. So consequently, the IVVs are designed as undergraduate, as ungraded web-based assignments. There's no point grading these assignments, because there is an element of so-called failure, in the sense there might be misconceptions, they might be poorly constructed conceptions. So there's no point grading these assignments. So IVVs combine the convenience of online video coupled with video analysis as well as interactivity as an individual tutorial. IVVs can address a learning. So when we consider IVVs as a tool, we can build them, based on learning difficulties identified in any of the discipline-based education research. So in short, discipline-based education research is DBER, and specifically for the biology community, it is a biology education research, or BER. So I will try to go through this. It will not take us more than 5 minutes, and I'm keeping track of my time. So if you did get a chance, I did notice that not many people, it was a very short notice. So I can't expect everybody to, or at least some of you to have gone, but if you did, that is actually very nice. So I'm going to stop sharing this one, and I'm going to go to the video vignettes itself. And please help me to just check the audio once, if you can hear the audio. Is the audio clear?
Yes, sir. It's audible, sir.
Okay. You heard that small video?
Yes,
audio.
sir.
Yeah. So just listen to it. It's a very short one. I'll go through the entire activity as quickly as possible. And then we'll have a general, at least you will have something to register in terms of what the tool is, what the tool can do, and how we can potentially use that tool.
Let's take another look at that toss ball in instant replay. You should see it right over here. We want you to focus on the vertical motion separately from the horizontal motion. Watch it as many times as you need to, and then answer the questions. And don't worry, these questions won't be graded.
So I can do it as many times as possible. So maybe I'll take Sunita ma'am, Shailaja ma'am, and I think they are two of them are there. So I'll ask them to be our volunteer students and ask them, Sunita ma'am, if you can tell me your answer for question 1, and Shailaja ma'am, you can tell me an answer for question 2. Does the horizontal speed of the ball change as it moves? So you can think for about 10 seconds and give me an answer. And Shailaja ma'am, does the vertical speed of the ball change as it moves? Take your time and tell me your answers.
So for the first question, it is the first option, sir. Yes, it speeds up.
Okay.
The vertical speed, yes.
First one again, speeds up.
Yes.
So both of them are, yes, it speeds up. Both the horizontal speed of the ball and the vertical ball does change and it speeds up, right? So those are the answers we have. So we'll go to the next page.
We're going to concentrate on the horizontal motion of the ball first. If you click on the ball in the movie, it's going to mark the position of the ball. If you look at the spacing between the lines, it will tell you something about the motion of the ball.
So I'm going to just go click and say, okay, I'm going to place it here, place it here. Let's do the so we can do it again. So basically, the point here is you can actually measure the distances, right? So you do that, and then you do that, and you do that. And so this is this. So now you have some kind of a reference. So we'll go forward.
Now, when I tried this, I saw that the distance between the lines was approximately constant. What this tells me is that the distance moved by the ball in each time interval was about the same. In other words, the ball's horizontal velocity was constant.
So I might have missed one step here somewhere. Yeah. So that's the point he was trying to make, that the horizontal one, it's the distance between 2 points is constant. So if I didn't put all the different so he's measuring the distance between each of these points. So that is constant. Therefore, you pick the answer, yes, it speeds up. You may want to take a closer look at the line spacing. So the line spacing is equidistant. So would you want to change the answer, Sunita ma'am?
Yes, sir.
So because the distance is constant, it looks like there's no change in the velocity. Correct? Well, let's see what happens in the vertical one.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now let's analyze the vertical motion. Clicking on the ball will mark the vertical position of the ball. Again, the spacing between lines will tell you something about its motion.
Shailaja ma'am, what's your take on this after watching this?
Sir, it speeds up and goes down.
Beautiful. So you can actually see that the distance is actually more, but as it goes to its peak, the distance is reducing, and as it comes down, it actually is increasing again, right? So because in a given time, t is equal to 0.45 seconds, the distance is increasing, you can basically calculate the velocity, correct? So when asked whether the vertical speed of the ball changes its moves, you pick the answer, yes, it speeds up. This is correct while the ball is falling, but not while it's rising, because while it's rising, it's decreasing. So you may want to take a closer look. Anyway, I think you got the idea. So in this entire thing, you notice that, okay, I think this is the end of it. Yeah, so I'll stop it there. So that's an example. And right now, there are really well done interactive video vignettes for physics. There are about 10 or 12 of them. I strongly encourage you to go and watch them, even if you're not teaching them. It's a lot of fun. I actually, every once in a while, I look at these and the way they are done, because these are extremely powerful examples for us to create new content. So fortunately, this entire thing, the IVVs actually can be created by us. So the tools are available. It's called Vignette Studio. It's an easy to use Java application that lets you make your own vignettes. All you need to get started is a good idea to address learning difficulties of students that we talked about earlier. The first step is to write a script using the IVV guide, which they actually give you. It's a nicely created guide. This will be very different from an ordinary video script because the vignettes are interactive. You have to plan it carefully. So for example, you need to carefully think through each question to make sure it has a purpose within the vignette, that it will be answered during the vignette, right? So for example, you can think about the Mendel's ratios, right? You can give a population, you can actually say if there is a dominant trait and a recessive trait, how does that get transmitted across multiple generations, right? So you could, and the point about address learning difficulties is there are, from your own observations in the classroom or from literature, there are enough examples of misconceptions that students actually have. So we can actually use those as the basis to create some of our vignettes in terms of what are the popular mistakes, popular wrong answers, or whatever you call them, and address those directly. So once you've made the videos from the script, you'll use a Vignette Studio to put everything together. And the screenshot above here that I showed, page 1, page 2, page 3, where you have the branch point, the notes are a lot more clear. If you are interested, I can send you the links, but it's not very difficult to find from using a Google search. So you use the Vignette Studio's graphical user interface. That makes it easy to arrange the pages of a vignette and to upload it to a website. So now, fortunately, incidentally, you need a specific server to do this. But today, I think that's less of an issue compared to, let's say, 20 years back. So that's about the interactive video vignettes. So hopefully that was a useful example of a tool that you could potentially use effectively in your classrooms. So I'm going to go and the next one. This is something probably a little more familiar to you all because some of you at least got introduced to this one. So Perusal began as a follow-up of a major 4-year research project at Harvard. Spearheaded, there were already tools available previously, but Eric Mazur, who's a physics professor, if you saw the video, the introduction video of on Perusal itself, he talks about, he's the person who drove the efforts behind Perusal. So they created a platform to serve the students at Harvard, and very soon they built a business to bring their research to students and instructors everywhere. The good news is this is free of cost for all educators. Now it's a profitable business serving about 1 million students at 3,000 educational institutions in 85 countries. I use it extensively in all my courses, and it's growing mostly by word of mouth when instructors share their experiences with using Perusal. And I am being one of those ambassadors of Perusal. Perusal aims to change the nature of reading itself from traditional solitary experience by oneself to making it a community experience, which is engaging and as a collective. It enables students to do the reading, come to class prepared, and motivate them to do so because they care about the content. So one of the complaints that we might have as teachers is that students come unprepared, but you have no idea ahead of time who has prepared, how much they have prepared, how can you modulate your classroom instructional plan, who should you address? Is it a majority of them who didn't get it, or has there been a conversation at all? So these things are sometimes hard, and the typical exercise that we do is who read the assignment or who did the assignment, and the few of them who raise their hands is our feedback, right? But instead, I'll tell you, you probably don't see that as a student, but I'm going to share you 3 screenshots of what you can, as a teacher, access from Perusal activities. So Perusal, you might have actually read it when you got an invitation from me about Perusal. So it helps students learn faster by collaboratively annotating the readings and communicating with their classmates and the instructor as well. Collaboration gets students help if they need help. It gets them help whenever they need it, and makes learning more fun, enables them to help others some of the students are more than happy and eager to share what they've learned. And if you noticed, we talked about peer instruction briefly as in the survey, and some of you who have used peer instruction, sometimes there's a lot more effective communication between students than between instructors and students. So peer instruction, again, Eric Mazur has been a great proponent of PI or peer instruction. And research shows from his own group that it's a great way for students to learn. And it also helps instructors to make class better by emphasizing information that students need and not necessarily what we want to share only. So if students have a question or information to share about, they can actually, a passage in the readings, they can highlight it in the text and stop, and make an annotation. And if it's a video, and this is a great addition to Perusal last year, where you can actually put video content, and get feedback about student interaction with the video. So students can also respond to a classmate's annotation in the threads in real time or upvote questions. And the instructors get a chance to add additional questions or ask or give suggestions or point them to the right direction. And good annotations by students contribute to the class by stimulating discussion, explaining their thought processes, helping others, and drawing attention to good points that need to be covered in the discussion. There could be misconceptions or clear understanding among students. So if a particular classmate's point is relevant, students can explicitly mention them, again, the usual social media style, right? You actually, you call them up like a tweet or I don't know, all the social media platforms, you can call out people and say, hey, I like your comment, or this makes sense, things like that. And they'll be immediately notified, even if it's not present, if they're not presently signed on. So, well, all this activity going on, and I'll be happy to share our own, this small group that we started off yesterday. And I'm more than happy to continue interacting with you all through Perusal along the way, if you're interested. So if you can let me know. So this is an example of a workshop that I conducted last year. And here are some things that I was able to notice. And I can actually show you things from my other classes also. But there was one assignment, it's a reading assignment I gave. And the overall assignment progress amongst I had about 28 participants in this workshop. And you can see 69.6% of them actually did not submit any work. 21.7% actually submitted some work. 8.7 completed, but they didn't get a maximum score. You can actually determine what is a good score. And nobody actually completed with maximum score. Again, those are things that you can intervene and say, this means a maximum score. So there's a lot of flexibility there. But here I got 37 comments on this one particular reading assignment with 4 questions and one unanswered question. And I have a 25 minutes average reading time from all the participants. This is the overall, like from the what's it called? From the dashboard, I can see this. If I go further into the reading assignment itself, here you can see there's annotations and there are all these comments. Each line is a comment from one of the participants. So you can actually see a decent amount of activity. This is all these comments from those 37 comments that were made that I mentioned earlier. And here is an interesting page view and average view time. Now, why is this important, right? Because again, as I said, you might want to empower yourself to see how much of the reading assignment has been, students engaged with some of this reading material. So you can already see that as the number of pages were going, which is not surprising, the page number, page views were dropped, but the average view time actually increased a little bit, right? Whoever were there, they spent a little more time. But anyway, the point here is you can get statistics like this about the general activity overall on different pages. Again, this average view time and and the page views. I removed all the names, but here is individual participants, and you can get an idea how much time did they view the page or the activity, and how much active time they participated, how many annotations did they make, how many questions that they raised, did they upvote somebody's comment. So comment upvotes student gave, question upvotes student gave and received. This gives you a reasonable idea, and I'm sure, I don't use a lot of analytics, but I really enjoy the analytics that I get from the student activity report from Perusal. So I think this actually, again, empowers us as instructors in trying to understand if there are challenges, how much involvement or engagement that the students had with a given activity. So here, as I mentioned, viewing time, here's an example of somebody spending 1 hour and 14 minutes viewing that particular assignment. And actively, they were engaging with like 92% of the time was very active. And they also got they made 11 annotations, which means they were deeply engaging with the content. So these are the kinds of things that you can get from Perusal. So I will end there and I'll move on to the next one. So I can't remember, but mind mapping or concept mapping is a tool that a lot of teachers are aware of, and some of you are already use this. And this is a typical, I'm not saying typical, but there are a variety of concept mapping deliverables or outputs you can see. Some are very text rich, some are a mixture, some are extremely detailed with lots of colors and annotations and things like that. So it becomes difficult sometimes. It's very powerful, and there's enough literature out there saying how effective hand-drawn concept mapping is, what you can get out of. But sometimes if you want to really gauge student understanding and remove it from the aesthetics of it or the expression of it, some of the online, I'm sure there are already, I saw some of them, some of you have mentioned Canva and Google Slides and things like that, right? So BioRender is an amazing tool, essentially being used extensively in research communication. So for example, when I have to make a graphical abstract, which is now becoming a norm than an exception in scientific publication. This is actually on recommendation by students. Some of my students who use BioRender felt this is an amazing tool for them to capture their thinking process through these visuals. So because most of the students I interact with are biology related, life science students. I would call myself a beginner user. I'm a very novice user of BioRender. I do use it for my grant applications and publications, but it has, in fact, they recently revamped their entire tool. And some of you might already be aware of this. So this is just a shout out to BioRender as a tool, and I'm not extensively talking about it, and I've crossed my limit. I wanted to talk only for about half an hour. So we are coming to a close. So it's a shout out for BioRender because you can get extremely rich graphics, and that becomes a normalizing tool. So if all students are using BioRender, now you can actually gauge their conceptual understanding. And there are, of course, a lot of studies and rubrics to actually talk about effective concept maps. Like how do you gauge a certain concept map has enough detail, which will allow you to assess student understanding. A couple of other tools. So that's one thing. And the last one I wanted to bring to your notice was the case studies. And case studies are essentially stories with an educational message. And some of you already mentioned that you use case studies. The stories have been used as parables and cautionary tales for centuries in general. And use of case studies is very common in business, law, and medical schools. And their formal use in undergraduate science classrooms is not very common, but it is increasing. That's again, that's all I'm going to talk about. All I want to tell you is the National Center for Case Study Teaching in Science is a very long standing effort funded by the National Science Foundation in the US. And anybody can actually contribute to this resource. So those of you who are interested in documenting your efforts in teaching practices, if you have an interesting case study, you can also publish out there. You can send it to them and see if they're interested in that particular case study. So this is again a shout out for the case studies resource center in Buffalo, New York. So many of you actually, all of you probably are aware of Kahoot and as an assessment tool, and some of you probably use it extensively. So I knew that you are not going to be unaware of Kahoot, but I thought I'll bring in two pieces of information from recent literature. This is only a piece of information from published work recently. So as all of you know, Kahoot is an assessment tool that has been shown to be effective in various education fields. So how can we leverage? So this is a paper from Journal of Chemical Education last year. So use of Kahoot for assessment in chemistry education, a comparative study. So I'll just read it out for your convenience. So they say, surprisingly, students' esteem for Kahoot was the same or even less than for other means of assessment. Instead, problem solving was considered the most valuable task for the class. These results might be due to the nature of chemistry learning, where although memorization is required, chemistry education places a higher weight on reasoning skills, which may cause the students to prefer training methods other than Kahoot. According to these results, the competitive incentive and playfulness of a game is less preferred than the intrinsic challenge of solving a difficult question or problem. Now, it turns out Kahoot is also evolving, and the free version doesn't allow you to do a lot of, you can do the basic multiple choice question and true or false and match the following kinds of stuff. But if you have a paid version, you can do a lot more interactive activities with as an assessment. Use Kahoot for using interactiveness. So here's another much more recent ones, incidentally from the University of Alabama at Birmingham. The title of the paper is A Tale of Two Institutions Analyzing the Impact of Gamified Student Response Systems on Student Anxiety in Two Different Introductory Biology Courses. So the non-graded Kahoot play caused less anxiety compared with other pedagogical practices, such as working in small groups or reading the textbook. After playing Kahoot, low performing students demonstrated greater engagement and lower levels of anxiety compared with their peers, suggesting that Kahoot may be particularly engaging active learning strategy for these students. The reason I put both these studies as a contrast is, like any other tool, Kahoot is not a panacea for all our challenges. So it's a tool, and depending on where we want to use it and how we want to use it, it can be very powerful or it can be ineffective. And so we can make those calls based on our experiences and our needs. So that's a shout out for Kahoot. With that, I will end, and I deliberately put enough time so that we can have a Q&A, or we can end it if you don't have any other questions. So, but before we end, I'll just leave this out there. If you have questions, you can either, I don't know the modalities of asking questions, but you can probably put them in the chat window or the Q&A window. And please share your feedback about this talk. I not frequently, but infrequently, I do share my experiences with other teachers. So if there's something that I can improve, maybe something could have been better illustrated or could have been more useful to you, please let me know. And this is I can put it in the chat box itself. And if you have a smartphone that you'd like to use, it's a very short survey, you can put it away there. So I'll stop here. Thank you once again, to the organizing committee for inviting me to share my experiences, and thank you for your patience listening to this talk. And I'm open to questions right now.
Sir, already there is one question in the chat box, sir. Shall I read it for you?
I can see that.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Sorry, please go ahead. Actually, you can read it and I will listen to it.
Yes, sir. One of the participants is asking, sir, can we conduct objective or subjective type of exams using IVV? And is it useful to identify students who are involved in malpractice?
So by definition, interactive video vignettes are not a summative assessment, right? So these are tools to enable student learning. So IVVs are really not an assessment tool. They are more learning tools. Now, I identify students who are involved. Actually, the IVVs, the way I use it and the way they are actually built, as I mentioned, they are not for assessment. So there's no point of even malpractice in this case. So we want them to express their understanding, right? So like we saw right here, we probably haven't revised our kinematics after maybe degree, like our own BSc, right? So we made our own guesses. So it brings out student misconceptions right in front of them. So the answer is probably, I would say not just probably, definitely no. The answer is IVVs should not be used for grading or assessment. They're more of learning tools.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. So that was one question which was posted in the chat box. Any more questions from the participants?
I saw another question. Is BioRender free for students? There's a free version and a paid version. You can do a lot of really cool things. Pretty much almost every, now they have added some new features, which are, their slideshow is fantastic, but that's only a paid thing. But the good news is they have very nice flexible payment options. For example, I don't subscribe to it annually, which is pretty pricey. So what I do is I get a 1 month subscription when I have to write a grant or when I'm working on a presentation. That's a lot more affordable. It also kind of puts pressure on me to utilize it maximally. But you can just log in. Anybody can log in and start playing with it. Although actually all the tools I've shared today are free, as in they're free, at least one version is available. Maybe their premium version has a price. For example, I have Kahoot. I have a paid subscription for Kahoot. It gets expensive, but it allows me to do a lot more stuff than normal free Kahoot. What else? Perusal is free for educators, which is good. And all features of Perusal are free for educators. What else? IVV is actually, the good news is it's a tool, and the Java the kit you can download it for free. And your IT, you will need a little bit of IT help, but any college IT team can help you install the IVV Java kit, and that's also free. It's also coming from a National Science Foundation grant. So in principle, anything that comes out of grant funded projects, they're typically freely available for anybody on the planet to use.
Sir, I was actually listening to that video that you have shared in that Perusal, and talking about social interactive discussions as a platform for engaging student learning process.
Yes.
Can all aspects of the subjects being taught through that, sir?
Can you elaborate a question, or can you give me an example? I mean, let's say, do you have a favorite thing that you want to try it out on Perusal? So, or can you elaborate it, your question?
Not exactly that. What I was trying to say is, in the talk, he was talking about social interactive discussions that can help student learning process. This is the message that I think I got from the video that you have given.
Yes.
So is everything, see, instead of teacher's role in terms of explaining the concept, I felt is more important, and then followed by discussion would be okay. But having just a social discussion, throwing open the topic and student learning on their own and discussing among themselves, which one do you think is more effective?
No, as I mentioned, Perusal gives you enormous power in trying. I mean, again, I gave you a scenario, right? Yeah. So you give a reading assignment.
Yeah.
And you come back to next day, you come to class. There is absolutely no idea who read what questions they have, things like that, right? Yeah. So you are essentially depending on, when you come to class, your normal question. I mean, this is what I would do. I'm sure maybe some of you have tried other ways. But if I didn't use Perusal, I give a reading assignment, and I come back next morning and say, have you read the assignment? And if I'm lucky, I'll get a couple of hands, like raised hands, correct?
Yeah.
Or if I'm even more lucky, somebody would say, oh, that was an interesting article, we would like to discuss. But beyond that, I get a lot of silence. Am I correct or wrong?
Yes, yes.
So Perusal actually gives you this opportunity, because it creates a platform where the students don't recognize you, right? They are actually talking to themselves. I like this doesn't make sense. Of course, it is not a magic bullet, right? It's not one of those things that it'll automatically happen. You have to train students, and just to make a point, I don't know how many of you have actually logged on to our own Perusal activity. It was not very, I can't blame anybody, because we had very little time. But there was absolute silence there, except Shailaja ma'am, you had a comment about this.
Yeah.
Right? Other than that, you saw there was not much. So it is not a magic solution, but it's a tool that enables you. It gives you a lot of idea. Now, the reason why this is interesting and the social learning aspect comes is, whether we see it or not, whether we like it or not, there's a lot of WhatsApp and other communication happening among students. Is that right or wrong?
Yes, yes.
So how do you capture that? That's very private, on their own smartphones, right? If you want to access that, how would you do that? And Perusal allows you to do that, right? So you create a WhatsApp feeling in Perusal itself that you are able to access. And the good news is, I mean, that is going to be very focused towards that activity. So again, it's a tool. So would it be the only thing that will help? No. I mean, for me, the nice thing I like is to see where all students are going wrong in their thinking. And I know where they're getting distracted in terms of, if I want them to think in terms of, let's say, molecular aspects of a certain thing, and they're talking about cell biological aspects, it's not necessarily wrong, but that's not what will allow us to get to where we want. So I can see, in fact, sometimes I don't answer questions, but I let students ask questions, and I keep track of those questions to address them next time when I meet them.
Yeah.
Does that help?
Yeah. Or maybe it's a sort of freedom of expression for the students related to the assignment or the topic that is being given. You're allowing them to express themselves to highest level, you know, you're giving them the freedom to express themselves.
Exactly. And so if they like somebody's comment, and it could be even something like, you know, I am going to read Vidya ma'am's comment. Perusal also prods students to read with more attention to the content since they have to comment on the content. That's a fantastic, very important point.
Yes.
Something I did not really emphasize in my talk or in the activity that I gave is you can give a soft grade, right?
Yeah.
I will get, you know, I have 10 points in my hands for this particular class. So I'm looking for consistently about 10 comments. I'm just making it up. It might not be the best thing. I'm just giving an example. So I want each student to have at least 5 comments on every assignment that I give this semester. So when you do that, or when you encourage them, or when they get used to that kind of an activity, as Vidya ma'am says, it prods students to read with more attention, not just your, you know, just make statements. So.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Sir, there is another question, sir. How do we add reading material to Perusal?
Once you get I strongly recommend all of you to sign up as an instructor, and it's really a breeze. You can very easily upload PDFs, Word documents, web pages, YouTube videos, any video for that matter, anything on the web. I haven't uploaded any video which I created independently. Usually the videos I would like students to watch, either they are on YouTube or on Vimeo or any other platform which is already online. So I use them. For example, the interactive video vignettes I wanted you to experience, I can't put those videos directly in Perusal, so I just gave the web address. So if you can go to the web address, you can access those things. So the web page comes in as a web page in Perusal. So it's very easy to upload files, all kinds of files for that matter. In fact, since it's a company, they're able to increase. Within the last 6 months, I've already seen them add new features that were not available even a year ago. So as I said, 1 year ago, they did not have the video option. And I love the video option because students are using videos to learn, right? It could be iBiology or one of their favorite videos. So at least I can direct them to a certain video and ask them, right? So if I can put it out there instead of them passively watching. In fact, by the way, as I told you, if a YouTube video is an assignment, I know how many people spend time on that video. So if you're interested, I can show you our own analytics. There's not much there, but I can show you within this group, with the 30 people who signed up in Perusal, we can see how many people spent time watching that video. Why is that important? Because if you want to base your next day's discussion, at least you know people watched it or not, right? So at least that way you can say, well, I saw that 80% of you didn't watch it, so let's watch the video. Or if 98% of them watched it, then you don't have to spend that time watching the video in the class. You can directly go ahead. You have their questions or comments or something that you can start off. So that gives you some kind of, again, as I said, it's analytics that will help you modify or modulate your own instructional practice in the classroom.
Yes.
So just maybe I am interested in this. So I'm going to put it in the chat box, this link, so that I get some feedback. 1 second. So if you can transmit this, there's no rush. whenever, before the end of the day, before the end of the workshop, if they can give some very basic feedback, that will definitely help me. So I deliberately kept it to 4 so that it's not an overwhelming list of things, but at least something that you can go home with. And again, I think each of us, if we shared what we use, it will become a humongous list anyway. So that, as I mentioned earlier, all of you are familiar and experts in different tools in your own way. So these are some things. Hopefully, at least with the exception of Kahoot, I hope the other tools are new and they are useful to you all.
Yes, sir. Any more questions from the participants? You can keep the questions in the chat box.
So an exercise I started last year, which is actually paying, I mean, it's paying good dividends, is when I interact with students where I ask them to read research articles. They struggle a lot. As you can imagine, undergrad students typically don't research and I don't give them easy ones. I give them probably this month's Cell or PNAs, not to say that they'll actually learn everything, but I want to understand the process. I want them to get familiar with that. So Perusal actually helps me look at, and I can share some of that details with any of you who are interested. It helps me modify or construct my way of interacting with them. So I know their challenges. I know I'd rather see them vent their frustration on Perusal, and so that I understand, than in some private conversation. And so when I introduce them to research articles, I get to see their struggle. And so I can come up with new ideas on how to address those issues. So Perusal has become my best friend over the last few years. And as I said, they've really been very good at increasing. My colleagues in the US who have been using this along with me, we've been having a lot of positive, feedback for ourselves. It's definitely been a good one. And actually, so IVVs in biological sciences and life sciences, they are not extensive. There's only like a few of them in Mendelian genetics. So I would love to collaborate with anybody who's interested in creating IVVs. Something I am very passionate and I would like to do is IVVs in Telugu, because there's not much content. And we know that, I know a lot of students struggle with English content who are not native speakers of English. So something I would like to at some point is create IVVs in Telugu, which will be, it will help a lot of students. So again, as it's a tool, article for graduate students as well. So people don't have to read. I remember when I was in graduate school, reading a paper was a struggle, right? I wish there was someone to understand, but it would really help. So Perusal is your proxy friend sitting out there, as in you can take it. I don't know if you follow, but sometimes I do follow Twitter. And the reason I do that is there's a lot of conversation on research articles by the community members, scientists. So Perusal can also, Perusal can be one more modality. You can actually have a research article out there. You can actually do journal clubs based on Perusal. I haven't done one, but it's a good idea. Well, journal clubs for graduate students. The program that I'm involved with is like a journal club for undergrad students. So it's not very different when you say research scholars. Undergrads are, it just so happens that they are doing their undergraduate studies, but typically it's like a journal club. So they're reading the papers, and I'm more than happy to share the kind of interactions that happen there with undergrad students. And you might be surprised, actually. I learn a lot just by interacting with the undergraduate questions and their conversations about the research article itself. So again, I would urge you to use it because you will probably know the benefits directly.
Sir, after we put in our account, register ourselves
as an instructor,
how do you enroll students into that?
Yeah, that's also very obvious. And okay, actually, now that you ask a question and I have a couple of minutes, why don't I share that with you?
Yes.
So that it will become obvious. So what you saw was the student view, right? So yeah. This is the instructor view. So this is I have multiple courses going on. So these are all the courses which are active right now. And these are all the archived courses, right? So this is our current one. So we have these are all the registered students in this particular workshop course. So to get started, this is a message you would have got. I sent it out earlier. Probably one of the messages you got on WhatsApp. To get students enrolled by telling, they have to create a Perusal account and enter the course code. So if you want to create a new course here, you just say create a course, right? Now, what you will notice probably is that, let's say you put in St. Francis Degree College for Women, it might not show as an institution right now. If nobody has used it before, Perusal doesn't know that St. Francis exists, right? So you can request Perusal, say, can you please add our college? Because we will be using Perusal. And they are very prompt about this. They actually use those things. I mean, they will create the institution as part of their list. So that's one thing. So you can actually create the settings. You can make multiple instructors. I didn't, but you can. I can actually make. I can have multi instructors on one course, right? And just for fun, if anybody is interested, offline, we can create a group where we are co-instructors and play with that that particular classroom or the course. Then you can have a grade book. I mean, basically you'll see here, again, don't take this seriously because it's not very well. So I can actually, no, I don't want to do this because I'll be logged out. So as you saw, I can make announcements. I can make general discussion. I can do a one-on with any of you. Essentially, it's one of those things, right? When they say socialize the learning platform, that's what the reality is, not whether we like it or not. That's how I approach this. Students are a lot on social media. So instead of competing with that, I mean, instead of being a passive observer of them being involved in some social media platform that I am not involved with, I want to distract them. I want to be able to create a space where they can do that with the material that I'm interested in. We are all commonly interested in. So the reason there is a lot of thinking going on. Shailaja ma'am, you asked about the social interactions. Why are students on WhatsApp, Instagram, Twitter, you name it? They like that social interaction, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whether we like it or not, whether that's the right thing or not, right now, that's what they're doing. So if they like that social interaction, if they like upvoting, if they like chatting with each other, why not let them engage with our material and still fulfill their own social needs that they're fulfilling outside of our classroom? I'm not saying, again, this is not a solution, but this is another modality which we might be able to compete with the other platforms. So anyway, this is the view you get. So if I go to our course home, you can see the library. I have the 3 activities I put. I can actually add content. You can see this is where they make money. Perusal makes money out of book. So if you ask a published book that students have to buy, they don't have to buy a physical book. So they buy it through Perusal, and Perusal probably gets a cut out of it. And that's how they sustain their business. This is the only one I think has a price, usually at a normal digital price. Web page, documents from Dropbox, documents from, and believe it or not, it's just a drag and drop. It's very simple. If you are used to any of the current formats, it's very easy. Video, podcast, iClicker, folder. Student, I mean, this is a new feature. Students can upload a student upload folder is also there. Then analytics, I already showed you, right? So I can actually show you one of the assignments for this one, getting started with Perusal. This is what you see. For 2 minutes is the average reading time, but we can go to the analytics. Can you see? I don't know if you can see what I'm seeing. Can you see the student report?
Yeah.
Okay.
We are able to
so you can see everybody participating, how much they have done. You can download that particular thing into a spreadsheet. You can do analytics your own way. So there's a lot of stuff. In fact, I haven't explored, I would say 50% of Perusal. So I'll be very glad if any of you become users to learn from you as well. So I think I'm out of my time. So thank you very much again. And please do send your feedback and that will help me a lot.
Sir, one last question. Somebody has asked, do we have a mobile app for Perusal?
I think they're working on it, but I'm not sure. Okay. Maybe it's already there. I don't know. I don't use a lot of stuff on my mobile phone. So you can check it out. I will not be surprised if it's not there, but last time I met the Perusal team, or one of them, they did say that they are working on a mobile app. The reason is, I think that question was very strategic. No, none of the students are actually on social platforms on the computer. They are actually on their mobile phones. So it only makes sense to make Perusal friendly on the mobile platform. So I think either it's there already that I'm not aware of, or they're probably bringing it on board.
Okay, sir. I request Dr. Rosalind, Department of Microbiology, St. Francis College, to give the vote of thanks for the session.
Good afternoon, everyone. I take this privilege to thank our distinguished speaker, Dr. Anil Kumar, Adjunct Professor, Department of Biology, University of Alabama. Thank you, sir, for the enlightening and interactive session. We express our gratitude for taking us through Perusal, BioRenter, Kahoot, and the use of these pedagogy tools to enhance online teaching and assessment. I'm sure all the teachers here will apply these tools to make online teaching very effective. Thank you, sir, for taking time out of your busy schedule to share your expertise with us. Thank you.
Thanks again.